Finance CEO Joe Jackson warns of rising inflation risk as Ghana's 15-month decline ends with an April rate of 3.4%.
Businesses can still plan, can still go ahead and invest, but keeping a sharp eye lookout for what is happening in the Middle East.
Also, Ghana fixed income market turnovers dips to 430 million cedis as Treasury bills maintain dominance. A lot later, government moves to introduce egg value addition amid export impasse with Burkina Faso.
Where we can process the egg. Egg can be processed into powder. Value addition, that is why the master plan, we've commissioned them to look at it for us.
Details of these and more shortly if you stay. Ghana's inflation remains historically low. Businesses are being urged to keep a watchful eye on global volatility. Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance, Joe Jackson, has signaled that while the current economic climate is good, significant external risks are beginning to gather on the horizon. It comes off the back of Ghana's annual inflation edging up by 0.2 percentage points in April.
Ghana's annual consumer inflation rose to 3.4% in April 2026 from 3.2% in March 2026, ending a 15-month decline as rising cost of housing and transport snapped the nation's consistent disinflationary streak. Government statistician Dr. Alhassan Idrisu noted the slight uptick could have been more pronounced were it not for government policies.
The supply constraints, we talked about market access, and then we talked about transportation. Government is still implementing its fiscal consolidation program, optimizing or maximizing revenue collection. At the same time, government is also saying, look, the expenditure side, there's so much waste, so I'm going to make sure that I cut waste.
Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance, Joe Jackson, highlighted two primary catalysts that could disrupt Ghana's price stability.
We're still way below the target range, so we can't complain. Prices may go up slightly, but they will go up at a much slower rate. The cedi has been under a bit of pressure in the last few weeks, so it's not surprising that prices of imported goods are going up. Risk is the risk of this Middle East war.
Despite these pressures, the outlook for the private sector remains cautiously optimistic.
Businesses can still plan, can still go ahead and invest, but keeping a sharp eye lookout for what is happening in the Middle East. As for the average person, prices may still go up, but they won't go up as high. So you can keep doing what you're doing, but be a lot more cautious than you were 3 months ago.
The government remains stable enough for strategic planning, but the era of easy disinflation may be coming to an end.
Also, business tax report, and that the inflation has risen to 3.4% in April, ending a 15-month-long decline. Now, activity on the Ghana fixed income market slowed sharply on Tuesday, with total turnover closing at 430 million cedis. The session was characterized by a preference for short-term liquidity as investors channeled the bulk of their capital into treasury bills and sell-buy back transactions. The following three business news desk report has a bit more on the development.
Data from the May 5 trading session reveals a market that was not only quieter but also highly concentrated. Out of the 431 trades executed, the vast majority were driven by treasury bills. This segment alone accounted for over 285 million cedis, cementing its role as the market's primary liquidity anchor. Investors continue to favor this short-duration instrument because they offer predictable pricing and faster exit options in an uncertain economic climate. The most active paper of the day was a treasury bill maturing in January 2027, which alone cleared nearly 59 million cedis across 16 trades. Outside of the T-bill space, activity was sporadic. Sell and buyback transactions involving government notes and bonds contributed approximately 93 million cedis to the total volume. Meanwhile, the Domestic Debt Exchange Program (DDEP) segment remained incredibly thin, with only a single trade recorded for a February 2027 bond totaling 50 million cedis. On Tuesday, only 2 trades were recorded for a corporate debt totaling less than 1 million cedis. This ongoing lack of interest underscores a structural imbalance in Ghana's financial market, where secondary liquidity is almost entirely dominated by government paper. As long-term government bonds and corporate debt remain sidelined, short-term government paper continues to set the tone for the nation's fixed income landscape.
The Ministry of Food and Agriculture says it is working to introduce value addition to eggs produced locally as part of efforts to address a growing glut in the sector. This follows concerns raised by egg suppliers in parts of the country who have called on the government to intervene in a trade impasse with Burkina Faso that has halted exports for more than 2 months.
The suspension has led to an oversupply on the local market, pushing down prices and threatening the livelihoods of poultry farmers and distributors. Amid the glut, government is also pushing ahead with plans to revitalize the poultry sector, raising concerns about a potential increase in excess supply. Speaking on the sidelines of the Southern Zone Ghana Poultry Master Plan Stakeholders Dialogue, the Chief Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Kwesi Etubonde, said plans are underway to add value to eggs to help stabilize the market.
The bumper harvest we got this year in terms of maize and soya, and we are looking at the situation where we can process the egg. Egg can be processed into powder. So the value addition, that is why the master plan, we've commissioned them to look at it for us. So when you produce and the market is there, everybody will be happy.
Meanwhile, Group CEO of Agri-Impact Group, Dr. Daniel Fahene Akwe, has called on the financial sector to move beyond financing production and support value chain development to maximize impact in the poultry sector.
When we are looking at financing, we should look at it from the value chain point. If you also finance processor and that processor doesn't get the beds, that processor will be operating at 20% capacity. We want to have this inclusive, and that is the model that we piloted with the Happy program, and we saw the benefits. So now you go and there's a processor and there are outgrowers who are producing to feed the factory.
Well, that was a report on government moving to introduce egg value addition amid export impasse with Burkina Faso. The Bank of Ghana's Governor, Dr. Johnson Isiama, has challenged the continent to transition from being passive adopters of financial technology to becoming leaders who shape the global financial system. Speaking at the 3i Africa Summit here in Accra, he emphasized that Africa has reached a pivotal moment where coordinated action will define its future standing in the world economy.
A recent World Bank report indicates that approximately 49% of adults in sub-Saharan Africa, they now have access to digital financial accounts. Africa is not starting from zero, therefore. We are starting from momentum. So this is progress, but it also signals a transition. Access has expanded. The task now is to make it count. So ladies and gentlemen, this progress points to an important shift. The next phase of digital finance will not be defined by payments alone. Across our markets, the basic payment infrastructure is increasingly in place. The opportunity now lies in building the next layer of value.
The central bank governor, Johnson Isiama, will get you updates from the commodity markets now.
On the interbank foreign exchange market, the dollar is selling at 11 cedis 24 pesos. It recorded no change. The British pound is selling at 15 cedis 29 pesos. It gained 3 pesos. The euro is selling at 13 cedis 22 pesos. It also gained 5 pesos. However, be guided that these figures could be higher at a forex bureau near you. On the global commodities market, Brent crude is trading at $101.66 per barrel. Gold is trading at $4,693.73 per ounce, up by $136.81. Cocoa is trading at $4,135 per ton, up by $61.
Well, that's it for the business news updates here as well on Sunrise. The show continues.